That's fine. Okay, welcome to Jill's of All Trades podcast. I'm Cinnamon with countrycraftswood.com.
And I'm Julianne with dirtpatchheaven.com with one H.
All right, so we have a wonderful show today. I'm really excited about everything that we're going to be talking about. And of course, we want to start off our show on the best foot, and the best way to do that is to start it with scripture. So I'm going to go ahead and share my scripture that I picked, and it is from Matthew chapter 6, verse 19 and 20. And it's, lay not up for yourself treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through to steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. And the reason why I chose this one, I think especially for our first couple of podcasts, I like to, all verses in the Bible, I feel, of course, are important. I like to throw out my favorite ones. And this one I actually talk about a lot, especially with work. Because when you're looking at your possessions and you're going through them and stuff, and if you're really thinking, if you get the mindset of, I'm not going to take any of this with me to heaven. So while I'm on earth, while I'm serving God, while I'm doing everything for His glory, are these items helping me do that? Or are they causing a distraction? You know what I mean? Like if you have way too much stuff and you're not properly using them, it's a very good verse to remind us that we're not supposed to be, hoarding stuff here on earth, because we're not going to be using them. We're not going to be able to take them up to heaven with us at all. And I had a thought. I was thinking this earlier today when I was thinking about that verse, and I totally lost it. So if I think about it later. Go ahead, Julie.
Okay, so today some of my favorite Bible verses are about the stewardship that we have over earth, over the land, a kind of an environmental note. Mm-hmm. And so my scripture is Genesis 2:15, and it's, the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it. And I feel like our place in God's plan on the earth is to beautify it and to have it be all that it can be. That we're stewards of the land, and as such we have a responsibility before God to nurture it instead of to destroy it. And so I like our topic today, talking about reusing and being more mindful of the way that we use the possessions and other things that we have in our lives.
Right. And I'm excited because we actually have a couple different examples that other people can use too. A lot of the times when you think of repurposing, you'll think of repurposed furniture and, things that you have to be like a carpenter in order to do. But that's not true. There's a lot of different things around your house, around outside, just all around you that you can, use for just more than one use before throwing it away, and maybe even continually doing it. So before we go into that, we'll go ahead and cover what's new with our garden this week. Like I said in last podcast, Derek did like that huge garden for me, and I was thinking, well, it's June already. It's mid-June. I'm not going to be able to plant anything. So I actually looked on the back of some of my seed plants, and they said May/June. So I'm like, oh, there's a couple things that I can plant. So I planted a bunch of herbs so I can, hopefully those grow quickly. I can give them to our chickens. And then I also planted more corn because I'm going to try and do like more corn every 2 weeks and stuff like that. So I did that, and Derek we've been starting to do vlogs. And
fun. I love that.
And we've been doing it of like the garden and stuff, and yesterday we shot one where I show around our chicken coop and what we're working on right now, and we put that up this morning and stuff. But the video he made yesterday, because he set up the camera and stuff while I was doing this newer patch, and this is the first time that ground has ever been tilled or anything like that, Well, when I was putting it together, I haven't even seen the video, and I'm kind of scared to look because every time I'm moving dirt, like all this dust creeps up, and so I have to like lean all the way back to like breathe real quick, and then like go back at it and do it real quick, and then at the same time, I had these itty bitty like gnats that kept landing on me, and I swear they were biting me, and so I'm like trying to blow them off while I'm like trying not to blow up all this dust while I'm trying to plant and go as fast as possible. And yeah, so that video might be very entertaining. So
It's real life. It's not looking at that at the cottage garden. It doesn't all become that overnight. So I think it's fun to see that kind of real gardening.
And I was kind of thinking that at the same time. Like, I completely forgot I was being videotaped. And then after I was doing that, I kind of paused for a second. And I'm like, well, you know what? This is how it is. It'll look better later, but you get the bugs, you get the dust going in your face. You have other things that happen while you're gardening, and best to do, to show people who are getting into it what really happens.
Right? As long as you don't pick your nose or scratch your bum, you're probably safe.
Exactly. So, yeah. What happened in your garden this week?
Once again, it was still about the straw bale, but I don't know. We have sunflowers up. Let's see. I should focus on the positive. In our row garden, my beets, my sunflowers, the carrots, the peas, the pole beans, and the tomatoes are all up and they're flourishing.
Wow. When did you? Sorry to interrupt, but when did you plant those? Did you plant those in the greenhouse earlier, or did you do it from seed, or what did you do with those?
I did it from seed. I think most of them I did the end of May. You have to be a little careful in our area because our last frost date is actually in June. But a lot of times you're pretty safe if you plant the end of May just before the last frost date. Brand new seedlings are a lot less sensitive to frost than bigger plants. They survive frost a lot better. So if they've barely come up and it freezes, they survive it a lot better than if they were up like, say, 4 inches. Okay. And so I'm super, super excited about it because I have kept tons of water on it this year. I'm just determined they're not going to die. And I need to go get a ton more rabbit manure so that they have... I've actually been using Miracle Grow on them because I'm that desperate. I'm just like, I know I've already got rabbit manure on them. I'm going to use Miracle Grow to back it up because I know my soil is so sterile and so dead. And so I am experimenting with Miracle Grow where I haven't really used that kind of treatment before. But it seems they're alive. So
yeah. Okay. So I know that you said let's focus on the positive, and I saw that you had put a video up about your straw bale, but I had not had the chance to watch it. So it sounds like something's going on with it. Is there any way to fix it? Like, what's the problem?
What has happened is that if you're familiar with like water systems, like water tables, like you can get a perched water system where you have your topsoil and your water tries to go down and percolate into the ground, but then it hits solid rock. Mm-hmm. Like you were talking about, weren't you on Flint? Didn't you say you're perched? Who was it that said that they have solid rock in one spot? Like it's not even cobblestones, it's just a big piece of rock.
It's not me, but it depends on where you're at. There is different type, but...
Yeah, well, that's what happens when something gets perched is that like when water tries to percolate down, there's rock underneath that keeps the water from being able to go further down. And so the water is stuck there in your topsoil and it starts to suffocate your roots. The roots can't breathe. There's no air down there. It's just water. Well, I have the reverse problem in that I have dirt on top of my straw bales. And what's happened is that peat moss has acted like a sponge, and then when it dries out, it kind of retracts a little bit, and so it has separated slightly. The peat moss has lifted up slightly from the straw bale underneath, so that there's an air space.
Oh, too much air.
And well, it's just it's an actual like gap between like the planting medium and the straw bale underneath that the roots are supposed to get down to, and that's called air pruning. And air pruning is that roots don't like air, and so if roots go down to a certain space and it's just air, they just die. They just die there.
Oh.
Or they just don't grow any further and they start to grow horizontally
Right.
instead of trying to go deeper. And it's an actual thing. They're people do it on purpose where they air prune so that things don't get root bound and that kind of thing. But it's not a good thing in a vegetable garden because you want your carrots to go down. And if so I'm having to actually go in and push down the growing medium so that it's in contact with the straw bale again and water more deeply so that it can't dry out so that it doesn't retract. Everything's still alive. Everything's still happy. But
Well, that's good.
but it's a learning experience. If I would stop experimenting, I'd stop having these learning experiences.
Well, I think you're doing good because, you said that it was a negative, but you're finding a solution in order to fix it. So that's the good thing, and that's what gardening is. You constantly have to, what is it called when they don't plan what they're going to say. What is it called? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like
spontaneity?
It is spontaneity, but they, oh darn, what is that word? Okay, I'm going to have to think. I can't think of it. Derek!
Being adaptable.
There was actually a show about it too. Derek. Hey, what was that one thing called where like they don't plan what they're gonna say, but they just like on the spot?
Oh.
It's like the people off of Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yeah, it's what is the word? I know exactly what you're talking about now. It's we'll both think of it later.
I know,
we'll
like later we'll both be
that's the word.
We'll both be talking and all of a sudden like, what? I know what it is. That's what always happens. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and talk about repurposing things. And then basically we want to see how do we stretch the number of uses of an item to save money, save the environment, all that good stuff. So I'm going to start off by one of my special items that I like to repurpose, and of course that is jars. So we will later on in one of these podcasts be talking about canning and maybe different tips and different stuff that you can during different seasons and stuff. But so obviously canning, and then once you're done with that jar, it's awesome because it's not like something you can get from the store and then you use it once and you throw it away. You can take that jar and you can use it as drinking glasses. That's what we do. And then once it's canning season, then those glasses all disappear, of course.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
And then after that, you can also, we have these rows of, like it's a wood beam in the shed. And then inside the wood beam is like the top lid of a jar. And so you can unscrew it and grab the jar, and it has different bolts and like that kind of stuff. So you can use them as an organizing tool. And I actually have one of my clients in her crafts room. She has used jars where she has it's a label you can get at the store, and it has it's the kind of material that it's like a chalkboard type. So you can write on it with chalk and you can erase it, and then you can, label it in different things. And she uses those jars for like paint brushes, for markers, for, sticker, like for all these different things. And she has it set up and it is cute. It's organized, and it's actually a great system because it's easy enough for the kids to use, and they're very, very little too. So woohoo, props on her.
I've used that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing stuff. It really works.
Yeah, and it's really nice to train, I don't know. I feel I've had some clients who are like, oh, I can't train my kids to do that because, I've tried it for a week and then it was out the door. You have to keep doing it, making it not an option, for them to learn. It's kind of like when they're young and they're able to wash their hands, they know as soon as they go to the bathroom, they come out, they're going to wash their hands, and it becomes second nature to them the younger you start. But even if you start later, you can always still do it. But, okay, sorry, I was going off topic a little bit. So, another thing with the jars, that I actually was just thinking about recently is that, I hadn't really, the only herb that I really, that grew well last year because of the flooding that we had, was basil. And so I, of course, crumbled some up and I just put it in a Ziploc bag, and then I had some like bigger leaves and stuff. So you can actually use those jars for your herbs that you aren't going to like crumble up, like, so if you have like flaked ones, bigger pieces and stuff, you can put that in. So I'm going to probably be doing that this year because there's actually a lot of herbs I want to definitely work on. Julianne.
I use jars for just about everything in my food storage. And when we go to town, rather than buying things in plastic containers, we use jars and take them with us. And I don't know. It's what we use for cups in our house because my kids always break glasses, and we've always got canning jars on hand. If I have big buckets of food storage, which is how I like to store my food storage for the most part, but for our smaller usable amounts, we'll go down, we'll fill up a canning jar with our dry goods and bring it up, and you can see through the jar so you know what it is.
Yep.
And they stack really, really nicely, and they look pretty. Of everything else, they're pretty. And so you can use them as part of your decoration. Do you love the fact that I'm bouncing? Is that why you're laughing?
Well, that is part of my, and I've been thinking, like, is she on an exercise ball? Is that what you're on?
I am. And my back has been hurting so bad lately, sitting on a rough chair, because I spend so much time in front of the computer.
Yeah.
My last ball, it rolled into the heater. And I came in one day and I'm like, oh, it's flat. What happened? So yeah, I got my bouncy ball back, but I'm sure it's really distracting to watch me.
No, it's actually it's actually keeping the smile on my face, so I think it's funny.
Is it?
Yeah.
As you laugh at me.
Yeah.
I'm so strange.
I did notice that you had jars of like the goat milk too when you were when you had that. That's a lot of milk, by the way. Holy goodness.
It's a huge amount of milk. We sold one goat because we just could not keep up, and we had one more who was going to be coming online soon, and we're just like, cut it while we don't need 5 gallons of milk a day. So yeah.
Do you know how to, do you ever make like goat cheese with that?
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'm so jealous. I love goat cheese. Like, I've been thinking about getting a goat and stuff too, just so I can have goat cheese. But
right?
that might open a whole new door for me. I need to do like one section at a time, while I'm working and, trying to get things around. Plus having to figure out how Ohio is with different seasons and what all we need for that. But
yeah.
We were actually talking this weekend, and the idea came up about cloth diapers. And I'm actually going to hand this conversation over to your area because you actually made cloth diapers when the girls were little, right?
Right. We had a very small income, and I kept seeing all these really, really super cute diapers on. There wasn't such a thing as Pinterest yet, but there were websites and stuff that showed these really cute cloth diapers.
Right.
And for everybody out there that has kids, I mean, it's $13 for a package of diapers that lasts you a week. And so that adds up really fast when your budget is like $50 a week. That's a huge proportion of your household expenses for the week. And so I had a whole bunch of flannel sheets that I had inherited from my mom or something. And I like to use sheets for fabric to make curtains or to make dresses for the girls and stuff like that. But flannel doesn't work very well for little girls' dresses. It's a little too warm.
Right.
But it turned out that these flannel sheets were key for making diapers because they're very absorbent. And so I went and I took a regular store-bought diaper and laid it down and made myself a pattern out of it. When you're using free materials, it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. It didn't cost you anything.
Right.
And so you make it, you see if it works, and if it doesn't work, you try again. A lot of that for me was that I wouldn't want to say that I was stuck at home, but I was at home with a couple little girls, and I was having a hard time keeping my time full because I was breastfeeding, I was cooking meals, but I didn't have a lot of energy for a lot of other things, and I didn't have money to go do a lot of things. And so feeling useful in my own home and feeling powerful in my own home was so important to my psyche to be able to look around and say, okay, I may not be bringing in money in, and I may be really fat and really tired, but I can make cloth diapers. I mean, once you're a mom, you'll understand that's really the mindset that you have, is that you have these words in your head that are not always kind. And these kind of activities that may not always work out to work the way that you want them to, they still mean something to you, to have something to do with your hands that feels like it's rewarding to your family.
Oh, yeah.
The one thing I would say about cloth diapers is that there are these inserts that you can buy that are made out of rice paper, and they look like a piece of, they look like a paper towel folded in half.
Okay.
That's about the size that they are, but they're fibrous. They're not scratchy at all, but you lay them down in the center of the diaper, of your cloth diaper, and what it does is that if the baby pees, you can take that diaper off and the insert, and you wash the insert with the diaper. You just put it in a lingerie bag. It's rewashable. If, however, they poop, what you do is you take out that little fold, that little piece of fabric, you take it out and you put it in the garbage, and it means no poop got on your diaper. So rather than having to rinse your cloth diapers out in the toilet when they get poop on them, that little disposable piece of rice paper just holds all the poop, and it just goes in the trash, and it means that you're not having to do that nasty swishing in the toilet, which is a normal part of. So those are miracle things that are worth what you pay for them, because they save you from having to wash your diapers repeatedly or having to bleach them.
Right. How expensive, do you remember, were those insert things?
I think it was like $3 for 100 of them.
Oh, that is way cheaper than $13 for however many, diapers and stuff.
Yeah. And you wash them. If they just got peed on, you just wash them. The only time that you throw them away is if they get soiled.
Right.
The other thing is you can make your own cloth diaper covers. You can make them out of wool, which is to take, you don't have to make yarn out of it. You buy what's called roving. I wonder if I have some in here. Yeah, I do have some roving. I can show it to you. Roving is what you are spinning from. And so what it looks like is a really open, puffy string. And you actually knit with the roving, and it's so open that it absorbs moisture. Whereas if you used yarn, it wouldn't absorb moisture, and it wouldn't be soft on the baby's skin. Yeah. So you buy merino roving, and you can make 16 out of one ball of it. And then what it does is that it felts down, which is to mean you wash it in hot and cold and hot and cold and hot and cold, and it shrinks down, and it forms like this impenetrable barrier to water.
Okay.
So that at night you can put these woolen diapers on that are super, super soft on the outside of their regular flannel diaper. But you can also get a kind of fabric that has a laminate on the inside. They come in really cute prints, but there's a laminate on one side, and you actually cut out your diaper cover out of it, so they have really cute little butts instead of those ugly plastic covers. And you just take some of those fancy diaper covers that you see in church that are the cloth. You know what I'm talking about? The fancy little cotton panties that they put over little girls' diapers in church.
Yeah.
You take one of those and you dissect it. You cut it up and you make your own pattern. And you use this laminate fabric to make your own pattern. And out of a yard of this laminate, which I think is somewhere between $12 and $20 a yard, you can make like 5 of them. And they don't get dirty. You just rinse them between uses and let them dry. And so you can really have a very easy system of cloth diapering for under $20. And if you buy them, it's like $300 for a set.
That's crazy. And you know what? If you really think about that, like that is a huge thing for repurposing, because whatever purpose you had, the flannel for in the first place, or even just using that material. And if you think about how much space you're saving in the trash and in waste.
Yeah.
And like, I can only imagine if you took all the diapers that have been used and have it in one spot. Number one, oh my gosh, that would smell so bad. And number two, like that would be a huge amount, and oh man, it's just mind boggling to think about it. I'm sure we could probably Google it and see how much, trash is like by one person from diapers.
Yeah.
But did you ever have any kind of a problem, like if you were at somebody's house with the cloth diapers, or did you just pack extra and put the others in like a bag, or?
Yeah, you pack extra and you just have a little Ziploc there. If you have those little rice paper inserts, then it's just like a normal diaper. You just take the poop, you put it. A lot of people will carry a plastic bag with them just for that purpose, even if they don't cloth diaper, just out of courtesy, so it's not stinking up somebody's house. And you just put it in a little plastic. I always reuse garbage sacks for that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just tie it up and put it in their garbage, and then you take the cloth part of it and put it in a Ziploc and close it up, and then you just take it out when you get home and put it in your soaking bucket.
Right. Okay. I love the idea of how much you save and everything by doing that. And I don't know, it's a reminder constantly of, the work you achieve when you see it too.
Yeah.
So we talked about the cloth diapers. We talked about jars. And it's very interesting that you said a Ziploc bag, because I have to tell whoever's listening that I have a friend who will reuse Ziploc bags. She will actually wash them out, and then she hangs them up to dry. Like, she puts them upside down over her faucet, so then the water drips out and stuff. Now, if she's used it on meat, she won't reuse it, but if it's just for like chips or whatever, and she, it's funny because I've even said this before, you can get a pack for $1.99 of 50. Why are you doing that? But it's funny because the other day at work, I actually had a Ziploc bag, and I packed some Triscuits. I like Triscuits, like the urban garlic ones, and
yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, and when I was done, I almost threw it in the trash, and then I stopped for a second. I'm like, you know what? I'll probably have Triscuits tomorrow, so I'll just use the same thing, because I generally will use Tupperware whenever I pack stuff, because then that way, even if it's a snack, because then it just needs washed, and then I can do it. So it's kind of the same concept, with those two. So we were talking, when you and I were talking about the cloth diapers the other day, we were also talking about, you were talking about your fabric scraps and stuff, and how that you reuse them. What do you do with your scraps, like your fabric? You make something, you got these scraps, and what do you do with those?
It kind of depends on the size of the scrap. If they're cotton from like a t-shirt or something, I use them as cleaning rags, or we prefer to use them rather than toilet paper. Like in cold season, you can get really scratchy around your nose. I don't know if you know Shadell from Delectable Mountains, but she uses them to wipe her family's bum.
Yeah.
Like, For babies, something like that, to take, if you'll have old flannel scraps, till you can finish it off with a zigzag or serge it around the end. And then they're much friendlier to a baby's bum than a wet wipe.
Really?
Much friendlier. But Shadell, she actually does that, and she keeps them to use as, like, toilet paper. And so that they don't have to buy toilet paper. And I had never really like thought of that as like a real thing before, and it makes me shudder just a little bit. But she says that their family swears by it, and that I don't remember if she said she boiled them or not, but she did have a little basket next to the toilet so that when they had used them, that they would then take it and wash it in a separate load from other things. Mm-hmm. And her imagination boggles my mind, but we haven't really gotten to that link. I
did see this one TV show, and I don't remember what it's called, but they actually had, it was a play date, and it was the first time, I don't know if they were neighbors or what, but, the video crew was there because they didn't use toilet paper, they used cloths, and she had the basket beside, the toilet, and when the mom came over with the kids, she was showing her around some stuff, and she's like, okay, and this is what we do. And the moms look like this girl was not trying to hide at all that she thought that this person was the most insane. And I'm just thinking, like, you know what? I give her props because it takes a lot to totally step out of the box and out of the norm. You know what I mean? And I don't know, just to think of how much she's saving money-wise and the environment, because I actually got a huge pack of toilet paper the other day, and it was like $18. And, you know, because I will be very honest, I can do generic brand for almost anything except for two things. Macaroni and cheese, I've tried, and it's awful. Or toilet paper. I cannot do the cheap toilet paper. Like, that is the one thing that I cannot do. So
that's how my husband is. That's how John is. He refuses. I don't care. It's not a big deal for me. But for him, he wants the Cottonelle or the plushie, whatever. And I'm just like, okay.
Yeah, we have to have Charmin in our house. So, and
yeah,
Derek and I completely agree on that. We're like, I think when we first got married and we actually talked about, you know, which kind we're going to get, he's like, okay, I'm sorry, but I cannot, you know, like I'm instilling, you know, these different things that I do, and, you know, we're figuring it out and stuff. And I'm like, no, I am totally there with you. So I completely understand that.
Well, and I think there's a concern in a lot of the prepper movement and the homesteading movement and the back to earth movement. Some people, they think that natural is always better. The more natural, the better. The more natural, the better. And there does get to a point where if you're going to go that route, you need to do it the way that our forefathers did, which is that when you have things like that are contaminated with bodily anything, mm-hmm. you need to boil it.
Absolutely.
That was what mothers did, is when they had laundry day, they boiled things.
Yep.
And, you know, I don't believe that chlorine is enough with stuff like that.
Nope.
I think you can do initial washes, but I really, there is a link between unhygienic practices and disease. And so
right.
Those kind of things, you can go too far grassroots. I mean, you really can.
Yeah.
So.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So for your fabric scraps, you were also telling me that sometimes you let the girls use them for like arts and crafts and stuff, or?
Yes, the girls are very, very, I want to say creative, but I'm going to say wasteful when I give them large pieces of fabric. And so what I've gotten down to is I'm like, okay, girls, you're welcome to take whatever you want out of my scrap box. The scraps that I have are yours to invent with, and go for it. Go be creative. And they make...
That's my husband's
Can you
phone.
hear that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, am I going crazy? My ears are ringing.
No, that was his phone. Sorry about that. I forgot to turn it off. That's
exactly what it sounded like. It sounded like I had nasty, like, ringing in my ears.
No.
But yeah, that's what the girls do with their fabric. But I do try to turn it into other things, like cleaning rags is one really, really big one. And we do have handkerchiefs that we make out of flannel, mm-hmm. and we really prefer those in winter time to toilet paper or tissue. So that saves us a lot of money, because we never, ever, ever buy paper towels. We never buy cleaning supply type fabric things. And
right.
When old towels get old, we cut them up and we turn them into dishcloths. So we never have to buy anything like that. And I think it saves us a lot of money, but I don't really know. I've always done it that way, so I don't even know what that kind of thing costs.
No, it does. And then if the dish rags, you know, start to get a little janky, you can actually use those to work on your car, you know, like to change the oil and that kind of stuff too. So it just mm-hmm. keeps going down. Cloth material is definitely very, very useful as far as recycling. We were talking about the arts and crafts and how you give them big scraps and they kind of are wasteful with it. I think it's mm-hmm. definitely a kid thing with not understanding how important things are. I had one of my nieces, I gave her a piece of paper, you know, like I had a notebook, that was blank or whatever, and she was she was drawing something very small and would turn the page and draw something small, and then she turned the page and I'm like, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm like, look at all of this space, like, because I don't know, it's just doodling, you know what I mean? And it felt a little wasteful. So that just kind of popped into my head when you were talking about the scraps and stuff like that.
Well, and we've had lately that problem where we have paper for our office supplies. I mean, our business, we have paper, and the kids want to come in and get a big old stack of paper and like not use both sides and that kind of thing. So now that they're making money from the Etsy store too, they have to buy their paper in order to make their books.
Now, has that changed their how they use it?
Yeah. and it's made it how would I say? It's made them a little more territorial about their things, because I charge $1 for 10 pieces of paper, and so now she's cutting them in half. Instead of using a full sheet, she's cutting them in half before she makes them into it. And it's reduced the clutter in our house a lot, because it used to be that we'd have all this used and unused paper all over the house.
Yeah.
And
oh yeah.
And then I spent $7 for that ream of paper, and it's just like, that's not going to work very well, guys.
That's awesome. I really like that they're doing that, because it puts it in perspective. Perspective. I had a client one time. She was going through all of her clothes and stuff, and she had a huge laundry room full of all these clothes. And she asked her daughter, she's like, go through them, you know. And so she's sitting down, her daughter is, and her daughter was about 20, I think, at the time. And she's going through stuff. She's like, no, I don't want this. And her mom's like, I paid good money for that. And then she goes, you know, and then she threw threw a shirt to the pile that she didn't want. And she goes, oh, wait, I paid for that. And her mom's like, oh, huh? You know, and it puts it into perspective when you actually have to do the work and stuff like that. So that's a great thing that, you know, you're having them do for that.
Well, and didn't we talk about that before on a different day? I paid for every single piece of clothing that I ever owned as a kid, and I worked for our family business too. And didn't you say that you did the same thing, like that your parents made you pay for your own clothes?
We when I was 15 is when I started working, and if we went out to eat, we had to pay for it because there's food at home. And if we wanted anything new, like from the mall or anything, like our homecoming dress, prom dress, anything like that, we paid with our own money, because mom could get us clothes from garage sales and that kind of stuff, but she wasn't gonna, you know, if we wanted that high end, you know, whatever, we had to buy it with our own money. So yeah, and like when I was in cheerleading, I paid for cheerleading camp, paid for the shoes, the briefs, socks, turtleneck, everything. When I was in any sports, I paid for it myself. So everything I was in, everything I did, you know, we paid for it ourselves, because with my dad being the only income, my mom was a stay-at-home mom. And, oh, man, she used to get asked this all the time, like, so what do you do all day? And she had 6 kids. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And she's like, man, I'm like, man, you have paperwork, you have appointments, you have cleaning, you have cooking, you have so many things. Like, she's constantly busy, and people would be like, oh yeah, I wish I could sit down all day. And people would critique her hardcore. And so I have a lot of appreciation for her, especially how she would react to them by having no reaction. That takes a lot to do. But yeah, so if we, you know, us having that one income from my dad, she would prioritize. So everyone who needed dental work got dental work. Everyone, you know, and that's six kids. 4 of them had braces. Do you know how expensive that is? And all of us, she would make sure that we went to the dentist every 6 months, got checkups. You know, almost all of us had contacts or glasses. You know, like, she made sure that the money in the household was spent on the necessities, not on going out and buying new clothes or doing any of that stuff. And so I definitely commend her for that, because that was not what a lot of people in society were doing. You know, it was more of the keeping with the Jones type thing. And I didn't mind. I think a lot of people, you know, at least my friends growing up, they liked coming to our house. They loved my mom's energy and her enthusiasm for life. I just remember sorry, a little bit of a story time, but I was in cheerleading and they had cheer moms is what they called. And they had the night before like a basketball game, we were all to meet at McDonald's, and each mom was supposed to give their daughter something small, like a gift. And it kind of was like, hey, look what gift I gave my daughter or whatever. And so with my mom's own money, she bought me this cheerleading a stamp, and it had a cheerleader on it, like a stamp. And then it was a pack of hair ties and like a little pack of like bobby pins or something like that. And I opened it and I'm like, and I knew that that was with her own money, you know, from making cakes, from having garage sales, you know, and so I'm like, thank you so much. And one of the moms actually was like, wow, doesn't take much to please her.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's kind of how we grew up, you know. And so so seeing all this homesteading, seeing all the, you know, making diapers and doing all of that, like even if you are home and you aren't feeling appreciated, there's always somebody who is around who does appreciate that. And especially your kids, even if they're not vocal about it yet. When they get older, trust me, you will get...
My kids do that about food. That's their big thing. They get so, like, if we have more goat's milk than we can use and we bring the goat's milk to the table, the girls get so excited and they say, Mom, thanks so much for the milk. Thanks so much for milking the goat so that we can have this milk. Aww. Thanks for butchering that rabbit, Mom. And it's just like...
And you know what?
Oh, they did see it.
That is wonderful that you have taught them to be grateful. I think that when I go someplace and like I don't give gifts to get a thank you, but there's that little thing that kind of like clicks when I give something to someone, like a kid, and they don't even say thank you. I'm just like, why, I've never.
Yeah.
Because I could never, like, it's natural, you know what I mean? And I think thankfulness is one of the biggest things, you know, for kids to learn for everything. So these other ones that I was going to mention real quick about, you know, along our topic of saving money and, reusing things. I'm just going to go over them quickly because kind of had story time. I was also going to mention if anybody's ever seen that commercial where they show like all the inside part of a toilet paper roll, and you know, if you stacked them all together, it was that advertisement because there's that one toilet paper that comes without a center roll or whatever. Like you can use those in your crafts and arts room. You know, they can use them for you can use so many scraps of just different stuff, like even spaghetti jars and stuff. You can use that for we never have guests and the doorbell just rang. Like, really?
Okay. That sounded so weird. I feel like I'm about to be taken to the mothership tonight.
Oh, it's so funny. Okay. Speaking of, I have to tell you this real quick. We went out to our chicken coop because they're eating their eggs. Then we moved them over to the summer stall, and we're having like one egg, and we're seeing these like empty shells and stuff. And so we actually, this actually goes along with it. We used one of those rectangular and tall bins that cat litter comes in. And it's like a bucket, you know, and we used it and we put it sideways so that maybe they can go in it for like a nest, you know, so that they're not just, you know what I mean? Like, somebody suggested that, so we wanted to try it. So we put it in there and we sat there and we were waiting to see what they were doing. And one of them crawled in there and they made like literally the weirdest noise. Like Derek and I like automatically look at each other like, what? And Earth, and we're like, maybe she's laying an egg. And we're like, man, we didn't have our camera on us, you know? And it literally, I even said, I'm like, it sounds like a UFO ship. So that's so funny you said that, because that was literally like an hour and a half ago. And she didn't even lay an egg. So I have no idea why she went in there and made that really weird noise. It was so odd.
Is your coop really dark?
No, we have a light on that stays on the entire time. Is that bad?
That's why. They will always eat their eggs. They will always eat their eggs if you have light, any kind of light in your coop. What you want to do is you want to make it as dark as possible in the coop. and create little nooks like you did with the bucket so that they're turned away from the light, because what they'll want to do is they'll go in and try to find a dark place to lay their eggs, and then they can't see the egg once they laid it, and they'll stop eating them because they can't see them.
Oh. Oh, I'm so glad I talked to you today. Because they literally were going from, we were getting 9 eggs a day to like 1 and sometimes none. And we're like, what is going on here? We will definitely try that. Thank you so much. I'm actually really excited because I love eggs. Like for a minute there we were having like a ton of them and I'm like, ugh, eggs. But now I'm like, oh my gosh, I want eggs so bad. Like we're not having them, of course. So we use those buckets, and we also use them for, we put, the chicken feed goes in there too. And, we constantly reuse like the cat litter bins and stuff. Okay. So while this time of year, everybody's picking strawberries and raspberries and everything, is there any, specific jam recipes that you like or that you have that run in your family at all?
My favorite jam recipes are freezer jam, and I don't remember if my granny, she had the best freezer jam, but my understanding was is that she actually used gelatin in hers. So rather than using pectin to get the set, she would use like a flavored gelatin, like a strawberry or raspberry flavored gelatin with her strawberry jam mix, and it was to die for. It was so good. Our favorite jam is peach jam, and I do not use sugar in my jams. I use either honey or stevia, and I use the regular. It's if I remember right, it's made from orange peels, but it's a pectin that you add. I think it's citric acid or something to it, but it's 2 packages. It's called Pomona pectin. Okay. And it's 2 separate packages that you add together, and they are stronger than the jam ingredients that you use a lot of sugar with, and so you can really control the level of sugar that your family gets in your jam.
Okay.
How is it that you got into your house cleaning business as your business?
I'll usually have people ask me, how long have you been doing this? Or how long have you been cleaning? And I say, how long have I been getting paid to do it? Or how long have I been doing it? Because I literally have been doing it all my life. My mom actually, I was in cheerleading and I sprained my ankle. And my mom said that she was, doing the mom thing. She was listening around the corner, and 2 of my sisters were in the living room and they were eating something like a snack. And I can't remember who said what. But one of the that's Derek bouncing behind me because he can see Julianne on the screen bouncing, and so he just started bouncing behind me.
Just gonna join in.
So my 2 sisters were talking in the living room, and they were done eating or whatever, and one of them looks at the other and she's like, "Oh, hey, you might want to bring in your dish." And my other sister's like, "Why?" And she's like, "Well, Cinnamon's on crutches." And they're like, "Oh, okay." So they grab their dishes, and my mom like comes around the corner and she's like, "What?" Like that's how it was. Like I used to, even when I was a little kid, I would yell at my sister Kana, like, "Kana, you left your clothes on the bathroom floor." And like I don't know what it is in me, but I was always cleaning. Like if I wanted to spend the night at a friend's house, I would clean the living room real quick, and I'd be like, "Hey Mom, can I spend the night at Nicole's house? I cleaned the living room and I vacuumed it too." And she'd be like, "Oh, let me ask your dad." So I would do that all the time.
Smart girl.
So yeah, and so what happened was my sister started having kids, and since Derek and I don't have any kids right now, and once my siblings started having kids, I wasn't very good with kids because I'm the youngest, and our family kind of stayed just within our family. Like, in other words, we didn't go to many relative reunions, and we didn't like have really close cousins, I guess you would say, just because of like living and like, distance and all that stuff. And so I wasn't very good with kids. So when I would go over to their houses to help them, I'd be like, I'm gonna do your dishes, and they're like, "Oh, no, you're not going to come over to my house and do my dishes. I'm like, yeah, I can. They'd be like, okay, thank you. And so I would, I would do what I could. I would do their dishes. I would, help straighten up. I'd pick up toys, and it just became natural. Anytime I go over to my siblings' houses, if I could help them in a way of cleaning, I would do that constantly. And I started helping people who needed to organize. They'd be like, well, why don't you do this? Or, hey, you can set this up like this. And it just came very, very naturally. And I had a lot of people who were like, well, why don't you have your own business? I'm like, oh, no, there's no way I could have my own business. I'm like, I couldn't even imagine. I'm like, where would I get clients and, all that stuff. And so I was a waitress for 13 years. And to kind of wrap up the story, waitress for 13 years. I got a job offer. So I left the restaurant I was at and I started working at the job. And the job was decent, but there was kind of a lot of drama with it. And the day before I got fired, the owner was asking, what are we gonna what's on the list to order and stuff. And so I told them, and it just kind of was like a financial thing because they also just implemented a new, we're gonna pay for your insurance and the spouse's insurance, and it was a small company, and they actually hired me on as the highest paying person. And so I think I was let go because of financial purposes, because she couldn't really explain to me why I was let go. But that day that I went home and I'm like, Derek, this is what happened at work. She was asking, the finance part and da-da-da. And he's like, how would you feel about starting your own business? And I'm like, I actually considered it for a second. And I'm like, no, I'm at my job. It pays insurance and, it'll pay the bills, so it's okay. And he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. So I go to work and I get there and they pull me off to the room and then they let me go. And I'm like, oh, and I was upset because I'm a hard worker. My work ethic is a lot to me. In anything I do, I try my hardest. I don't just slack off, and I got home and I tell Derek and he's not smiling, but he's just kind of looking at me and he goes, so how would you like to start your own business? And I'm like, and I couldn't say no because what else am I going to do? And I'm like, are you sure? And I'm like, well, I don't even know how. And so if it wasn't for him, I would not have been able to start my own business. It definitely helped that I was substitute teaching because I went and substitute taught. And then after I get out, I would walk from house to house. I'd pass out flyers, introduce myself, and I'd go to any established business that would let me hang up like an ad or anything like that. I put it in the newspaper, and my business picked up because of referrals. Once people had my service, and then everyone's always asking, for a new cleaning person and stuff. Well, I don't want to say all the time. I have some really good clients, and I just treat it like my home, But so in short, it's something that I love to do. It comes very natural to me. So yes, there are times if I don't get enough sleep, it does feel like work. But other than that, I really enjoy it. I'm very happy, and I feel like, whatever job you do, you should have a job that you like, especially because it takes up so much of your time. So
yeah, I agree.
Okay, so if you would like to support the podcast, you can do so by stopping on our webpage, jillsofalltradespodcast.com, or you can share the podcast with a friend. Both would help us out tremendously. Also, you can go to iTunes and review us. The reviews help others who are searching for the podcast find us better. If you'd like to interact with us a little bit more, I have a YouTube channel. It's called Country Crafts, and also my Instagram is Country Crafts Wood. And Julianne's, her YouTube is Dirt Patch Heaven, and her Instagram is also Dirt Patch Heaven. So very easy to find. So our Instagram that we actually just started is Jills of All Trades Podcast. And you can use the hashtag Jills of All Trades on something you'd like us to see, maybe do a show about, or feel free to comment on our page, on our pictures, and ask questions, and we can go ahead and try and get them and answer them best that we can. And we also like that because while we're putting these podcasts out, we're putting 5 out all at once, so you guys can kind of get an idea of what we're going to be talking about. But then once, we air these podcasts, then we can start looking at you guys' comments and incorporating that into the show and answering more questions and stuff. So thank you for joining us. Hope you guys all have a wonderful day. And always remember to give 100% except when donating blood. Thank you.
Good one.
That's a Derek specialty.
I love that. I haven't heard that one before, but I love it.
All right, thanks, guys. Bye.
See ya. Bye. That'll be fun. Oh, that was a good one. I'll have to remember that one. That makes a happy day.